When I think about leadership, I think about people like Nelson Mandela, not just because he was elected president, but if you have studied that history of that country, you'll know that after he was elected president, it was a time when many people in his community wanted retribution and revenge. But the path that he took was different. It was a path of reconciliation. And it wasn't an easy choice. It required many leadership moments to reframe the work for people, to help them see possibilities, to help them see how they themselves might be getting in the way of progress despite their best intentions. And leadership of that kind is dangerous. It's risky. It's not guaranteed to be successful. What we want to do now is begin to unpack the difference between leadership on the one hand and authority on the other hand. Because the single biggest mistake that we make in organizational life and in our everyday life is confusing or conflating the idea of leadership with the idea of authority. So I want to offer you two different definitions of leadership to begin with. The first might be a little bit more palatable than the second. Here's the first definition. Leadership is about mobilizing people to tackle challenges that have no known or easy answers. Again, think about Nelson Mandela's situation. It wasn't clear how to close the gap, how to narrow the gap between a country that he was trying to inspire toward healing and democracy and the country he inherited. So it's about mobilizing people, not about providing answers. The second definition of leadership is a bit more provocative, and that is the idea that leadership is about disappointing your own people or disrupting your own people at a tolerable pace for a purpose. Disappointing because when you ask people to face challenges that have no known answers or no easy answers, and you can't provide vision or charisma or just make things happen with resources and force, well, they can feel disappointed. That's not what they want. That's not why they elected you or appointed you or hired you in your top position. So let's unpack a little bit further this distinction between authority on the one hand and leadership on the other hand to see if it becomes more clear. Now, authority is an important function in any group of people. Without authority, things would likely devolve into chaos. No matter whether you're a president, like Mandela was, an executive director, the head of a ministry or a team, or even a mother or a father, there are certain services of authority that you're expected to deliver, certain functions or expectations of authority. And they're basically the same, no matter what role you play. The first is what we call direction. We want people in authority to know where they're going. What's the vision? That's about direction. The second function of authority is to provide a sense of order, to avoid the chaos, to give people clear roles and responsibilities, to manage conflict. The third expectation or service or function of authority is to provide protection. And this could be actual physical protection, or it could be emotional, psychological protection. It could be protecting people's resources, or protecting their jobs, or protecting their sense of competence to do the job as they currently do it. And the last service or function of authority is expertise. This is an obvious one, right? We want people in authority to know what they're doing, to be experts. And so the good news is if you face a challenge, if you come into a leadership moment where you can provide clear direction, order, protection, and expertise, well, go for it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. The challenge, of course, is when you can't provide those things. When you face a situation or a leadership moment where you don't have an answer, where people are conflicting with each other, where the answer requires learning, trial, experimentation, failure. This brings us into leadership territory. Because let's face it, when you have all the answers, when people feel safe and you have the expertise, no one runs around saying, "Where are the leaders? We need more leadership around here." Leadership is needed precisely when we don't have answers. And that's a very different notion than authority. So this idea of leadership happens in the space that we call dancing on the edge. It's kind of that space between what you are authorized to do and are able to do, and what you're not authorized to do, what you're not sure how to do. Dancing on the edge between those two terrains. And if you dance on the edge skillfully, you can move the work forward. In fact, you can actually gain more authority by dancing on the edge well, by exercising leadership successfully. But if you go too far beyond what people expect, if you disappoint them too much in the service of progress, well, you can get killed off. You can get fired. You can get taken out. And that often happens to people who care so deeply about the challenges they face and don't realize until it's too late that the leadership they were exercising went well beyond this scope of authority that they've been given. So these are interesting questions to consider, because one of the ways that people actually collude or prevent people from exercising leadership is by calling them a leader. That's right. We prevent leadership from happening by calling people a leader. Because what we really mean when we say leader, usually, is that we want people with power and authority who agree with us, who will do what we want them to do, who will think how we want them to think. We usually don't mean that we want people who will ask us the tough questions, ask us to make tough choices. So in this final part of session 3, we're going to start to pay more attention to how we use the words leader and leadership so that we don't collude in preventing it from happening. Because after all, we don't talk about what we see what we talk about.